Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to the Preakness edition of Racing Across America for this Saturday morning, May 15th. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Another big weekend, couple weekends ago, really great races, the Oaks and the Derby. Obviously the air taken a little bit out of the balloon with last week's announcement on Medina Spirit, but another couple of great days of racing may help put us back in a good frame of mind, the racing world. And Friday was certainly a good day. I'll hit on that in just a moment. Before I do that, do want to update you on some of the important Capital OTB information. First of all, here at the Clubhouse Racebook, we will open our doors this morning at 9:30 a.m. All other branches open today at 10 a.m. First post at Pimlico is 10:30. So Clubhouse 9:30 opening, all other branches 10 o'clock. First post at Pimlico today 10:30 a.m. Keep that in mind. Also, here at the Clubhouse Racebook today, we will have the $750 OTB Live bankroll. I will be playing with $750 on behalf of 20 randomly selected patrons. You can get your chance to be on the bankroll team by swinging by the racebook between 11 and 2. Put your name in the hat at that point. At 2 o'clock, 20 folks will be selected for the team. I'll be playing between 1 and 6 o'clock, probably focusing on Pimlico, but we may veer off during the afternoon a little bit. And at the end of the day, all the money we've made split up amongst the bankroll team. Free money from Capital OTB. Love to have you come down to the racebook on Saturday. A, root us along, and B, potentially get on the team and make some money yourself. That's OTB Live $750 Preakness Day bankroll, Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Again, we would love to have you swing on down here and enjoy the action with us here at the Racebook. Coming up on today's show, we recorded a couple of interviews yesterday because of the early start today. It just made things more convenient for schedules. But Tim Wilkin will join us, the racing writer for the Albany Times-Union. He has been covering on the road, covering the Triple Crown this year. A couple of weeks ago, he was down in Louisville. This week, he's been at Pimlico and Baltimore. We got some comments from him on Churchill and Oaks Derby weekend, and you know how things worked out with fans and the racing, and subsequent news that came out as well. But also, Tim has been at Pimlico all week on the backstretch, so we got some thoughts and some backstretch news from Pimlico leading up to today's Preakness. Tim Wilkin will join us in a little bit, and we will also be joined a little bit later on by our friend Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, Countdown to the Crown. We've been plugging Jeremy in throughout the lead up to the Triple Crown season as he covers with the Countdown to the Crown package the prep races and whatnot. So we got Jeremy's thoughts on the Derby a couple of weeks ago, and more importantly, perhaps, his thoughts on this afternoon's Preakness as well. So Tim Wilkin, Jeremy Plonk will be joining us a little bit later on. Before we do that, though, let's go back and look at yesterday. Kicking things off down at Pimlico in Baltimore with a really nice stakes card on Friday, highlighted by the Black-Eyed Susan. We're going to watch the stretch run here. Coming around the turn, you can see the two-horse in the blue sitting maybe third or fourth on the rail. He's overall about sixth, but on the rail in those blue silks, and kind of goes back a little bit and then gets back in gear. Willful Woman, I'm pointing the two out because that was my pick at 13-1, and Willful Woman starts to get in gear here in the stretch, and I think, at 13-1, I'm going to get a nice stretch run and maybe get this done at $28. But just about the time I thought that, you can see here, I'm not going to be able to catch the eventual winner, number 1, Army Wife. Army Wife gets it done. Willful Woman does get up, though, for a decent second in here. Finishing third was the early front runner, number 5, Lady Traveler, for our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. All three of them should be nice players on the 3-year-old filly scene going forward. Again, it's two big races over the last couple of weeks. I couldn't get Mandaloon up in the Derby at 26-1, and I just couldn't get Willful Woman up yesterday at 13-1. Did, at those odds, had a little place money on both of them, though, so that worked out nicely, but just couldn't get them up for the win. But hats off to Army Wife. Just seems to be a better 3-year-old filly this year. Showed some flashes of promise last year for trainer Mike Maker. Subsequently, though, the 2 starts this year were improved, clearly. So this is a horse that got better with age. Seasonal debut and optional claimer down at Gulfstream. Nice gutty nose win there. Subsequently, a 3rd in the Gazelle behind search results last time, and then follows it up in the 3rd start of the season with a win in the Grade 2 Black Eyed Susan. So Army Wife, obviously a 3-year-old filly to watch now, is an improved 3-year-old filly, and Willful Woman, still pretty lightly raced for Steve Asmussen, so she'll be one worth watching as well. And the West Point runner, Lady Traveler, also. Let me mention also on the card yesterday, Pimlico Special was won by Last Judgment. That was Mike Maker and Jose Ortiz. Alda won the Hilltop. John Velasquez and Graham Motion, the team there. Red Ghost won for John Velasquez and Wesley Ward. The Very One was won by Caravel for Flojo and Merriman. And the DuPont was Spice is Nice for Pletcher and John Velasquez. And that was a nice, that indicated she's going to have a nice year too, I think. Spice is Nice. That kind of validated what she's been hinting at. But as you may have gathered as I read off those names and those winners, yet another great day for John Velasquez. He won 3 stakes on the Friday card. So Velasquez really having a nice Triple Crown season, encompassing all the undercard stakes and day before stakes as well. Nice day for John Velasquez in the saddle, and a nice day for trainer Mike Maker, because he won obviously with Army Wife, the Black Eyed Susan, but Last Judgment was the Pimlico Special winner. So a nice day for Mike Maker, trainer as well. All right, that kind of catches you up. Do let me remind you that nighttime thoroughbred racing will be available here on the network and via Capital OTB Bet both tonight and tomorrow night. So keep that in mind as your Saturday and Sunday evenings progress. Nighttime thoroughbreds available here at Capital OTB. But for now, I'm going to send it to our guests. Again, a little bit later on, Jeremy Plonk, Countdown to the Crown. We'll get his Derby recap thoughts and Preakness preview thoughts. Same coming up right now from our friend Tim Wilkin. As I say, he is on the road covering the Triple Crown for the Albany Times-Union down in Louisville a couple of weeks ago, and all week long down at Pimlico in Baltimore. So we'll get some thoughts, both Derby and Preakness, from Tim Wilkin. Joined now by Tim Wilkin. He is on the road for the Times-Union covering the Triple Crown, so I thought we'd go back, do a little Derby recap, and get some thoughts from Derby Oaks weekend, and a little preview of Preakness on Saturday afternoon. Tim, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you today?
Very good. Happy to have you on board talking a little horse racing. That's now the specialty for you for the Times-Union. And glad to see you were down at Churchill for Derby Oaks weekend and in Baltimore for the Preakness. People can check out your Twitter feed for a lot of good information there as well. And speaking of your Twitter feed, I pulled up a little video you had put together of kind of highlights from Derby Day down at Churchill Downs. And so we'll show that. But give us your overall impression of Oaks Derby weekend. We'll talk the horse racing specifically in a couple of minutes, but just the event, given we're a year out in the COVID world at this point, fans were allowed, and from talking to people the past couple of weeks, everybody enjoyed having the buzz back in the building, which came through the TV as well, so that was nice. But give us your impressions of Oaks Derby weekend, again, given the situation.
Well, it was so different to be at a sporting event that had people, and a lot of people. I was at the Breeders' Cup last November, and there was limited fans there, even though I think they opened the doors and let the whole city of Lexington in there. There was a lot of people there, and I felt a little uncomfortable there because I wasn't, they didn't have vaccinations back then. But at the Derby, I didn't feel badly at all. I didn't feel nervous at all because I've had the vaccination, and the people at Churchill Downs really did a pretty good job of making it a safe environment for everybody. I mean, because, at the Kentucky Derby, there's usually in excess of 100,000 people there, and that was limited to 51,000 they announced. And like a lot of other people, I thought there were closer to 70 there, but it wasn't an uncomfortable place to be, and it was just good to see something like that, because it gives you the feeling that maybe we are starting to turn the corner and get back to some normalcy, because it's been a rough year, as you well know from being in Saratoga every year. It was just Saratoga every day last summer. It was just a very weird feeling there, just to have people back at the racetrack, and the only thing you would hear in Saratoga are the pounding of the hooves and no crowd in the stands, and it was just good to see a track with people inside it, and that was a welcome sight. And it just, like, again, I think it gives people hope that we are going to get back to something normal sooner than later.
Yeah, it felt good. As I say, even watching through the TV, you got the buzz, and that the buzz was back was good. I'm curious, what were the media protocols? Because, again, up at Saratoga last year, you had to have a test before the season started. You got temped every day as you came in, and it seemed like over the past year at various tracks, there was limited access to the backstretch for the media. There would be some pool reporters, but it seemed things were a little more open down at Churchill a couple of weeks ago. What were the protocols?
Well, it was like pre-COVID. I mean, everyone that had Credential X had access to the barn area. You had to come in and get your temperature taken. I mean, I never had to show proof of vaccine or anything like that. You didn't have to have a negative COVID test. It was just a temperature check, and it was almost like a normal derby. I mean, if in years past, the barn area would be just a madhouse with, it seemed like everyone and their second cousin was out there, being able to be out there to watch workouts. That was limited. The average person couldn't go out there, but media-wise, there were. I wouldn't say it was throng. I mean, they did limit it, but as far as the newspapers, it was. I think the LA Times was there, the New York Times was there. The only other paper I think from New York State besides the Times-Union was Buffalo News was there, and New York Post wasn't there, but New York Daily News was there. Newsday wasn't there. And they don't. But their coverage of racing has really gone into the toilet for forever. I mean, the last 10 years or so, they just don't cover it like they used to, which is sad to see. But that's a subject for another day. But the media was. It wasn't like there was only a handful of people there. There were a lot of media running around there, a lot of print and electronic media, and it was good to see that there were people there too.
Let me ask you this, to relate back to our area and keeping our fingers crossed for our summer up here at Saratoga. Were there lessons to be learned? Was there maybe a template to take away from Oaks Derby weekend at Churchill that NYRA can look over their shoulder and come away with some examples to follow? Or is Derby Oaks weekend just kind of a different animal altogether?
I think it's a different animal, Seth, because, you've got people coming in just for this one big race at Saratoga. And I don't know how many people would come. It used to be people would come for the Travers. You'd get a lot of people for that. But as far as the day-to-day thing at Saratoga, I think NYRA, the only thing they have to do is just reserve a spot for a few of us on the turf terrace, because that's where we spent last summer, and it was spectacular.
That's hilarious that you say that, because I had Pat McKenna on a couple of weeks ago as the rules were kind of changing, and I just got an update for him, and I said, the one thing I want to stay the same, I want to be back in the upstairs dining room as the auxiliary press box.
That's what I don't know if we're going to be able to get that back, but I would gladly trade in that to just be able to see people up there again, which is what we're all hoping for. And it just seems like we're going in the right direction. And if people are all vaccinated and they're able to get to the track, maybe they'll have 50,000 people there for the Travers, which would be just awesome. Yeah,
no question about it. I mean, I keep saying, people keep asking me, and I say, we're going to have fans. Certainly, that is clearly where we're going. But it's hard to say how many and how it's going to work out, because the situation is still so fluid. Whatever you think today could be different tomorrow or next week. And so we'll just keep our fingers crossed at this point. But let's go back and talk horse racing now from Churchill Downs and get your thoughts on the Derby. We're going to watch the stretch run here. It will be Medina Spirit over Mandaloun, Hot Rod Charlie third, and the favorite Essential Quality fourth. I liked Mandaloun, and 26-1. I thought he was going by the entire stretch, and he just could not get by Medina Spirit, who dug in nicely to hold on for the win. It was fun to see John Velasquez have a big weekend as a veteran in his career right now. The day before in the Oaks, it was nice to see Irad Ortiz give him the high five under the line in the Kentucky Oaks. That was a show of respect, certainly. So there were some good storylines. As I say, I was rooting for Mandaloun, came up a little short, but what were your thoughts on the Derby?
Well, the thing with Medina Spirit is, he's never really run a bad race, and once he gets in front of a horse, he does not let horses by him. He just digs in, and he's got that tenacious fight in him. I mean, he's tipped his hand when he did in the Robert B. Lewis back in January, where he just won by a neck, and he was surrounded, and it looked like he was going to give up the lead, but he didn't. And but the thing too, Seth, with him is that going into the prep season, I mean, really, Medina Spirit was like Bob Baffert's third string horse. I mean, he was the third seed. I mean, after Life is Good, then Concert Tour, and then we have Medina Spirit too, who all he does is show up and run hard. He does that every single time. But Baffert was not confident going into that race. I remember sitting in his office with him. I think it was either the Wednesday or Thursday before the Derby, and he talked me off him. I mean, I was going to pick him, and seriously, I mean, and then he just said, he goes, I just don't know if he has the goods, as he would say, like when he would bring in like a Pharaoh or Justified. He knew he had the horse to beat. He didn't have that same feeling, so I think he was kind of surprised that he did win. But you've got to give credit to this horse because he just doesn't want to lose once he gets the lead. I mean, I agree with you. I thought he was going to get swallowed up in the stretch in the Derby, but he didn't. And then we had the day after. Then everyone began to learn what betamethasone is, or betamethasone. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but the regulated drug that was found in the horse, and so we've got that cloud hanging over racing, and it's been hanging over the Preakness all week long because this is horse racing's. This is the horse racing's time of the year to shine because people that don't follow horse racing watch the Kentucky Derby, and then they'll watch the Preakness because they want to see if the Kentucky Derby winner is going to win the Preakness and go on to have a chance to win the Triple Crown. And Bob Baffert is without a doubt the face of racing, and that face of racing has a big black eye right now. It's gotten so that I think Baffert's embarrassed. I think he's hurt. I think he's confused. But the numbers. He has to be the one that takes responsibility for his horses, and this substance, he admitted, got into Medina Spirit because they were treating him for a skin irritation with an ointment that had this substance in it, and it's just been a mess. So he's decided he always loves coming to the Preakness, and he went back to California on Wednesday from Louisville. Because he's going to hunker down to his home in California, watch the race there, and it's just an unfortunate situation all around because I'm sure that a lot of people that follow this sport just marginally are thinking, what the heck is going on with this guy? He cheats. They all must cheat. Everyone must cheat in this game, which is, as you know, is so far from the truth because there are a lot of guys in this game that do it the right way. They'll never, they don't, the Barkley Tags of the world, Shug McGahee of the world, even though I think Shug has had a positive. But this is just a bad look for racing when you have your main guy come up too many times with these positives, and it's not a good look for racing. And it'll survive. The sport will survive, and I'm assuming I would think Bob will still be the dominating trainer as he is, but there's always going to be that doubt with him because of, look what happened with Charlton last year and Gamine, high-profile horses. And now you got the Derby winner. It's as D. Wayne Lucas said, this happened at the wrong time and with the wrong horse. And he's exactly correct, because when this happens with the Kentucky Derby winner, I mean, this is the first time since, I think, 68 where there was a positive substance in a horse, and the Dancer's Image was disqualified, even though it took 4 years for it to happen. I mean, this is going to be dragged out too. I mean, if this other split sample comes back positive from the Derby, then he's not going to be the Kentucky Derby winner anymore, and everyone that did bet Mandaloon is going to be going crazy, even though they're not going to get paid.
Yeah, and
like you.
Exactly. My take, and I've said it over the past few days here, I think the racing industry shoots itself in the foot a little bit with the zero tolerance rule some places. In California, as I understand it, this wouldn't even have been a violation. But they have the medication rules to protect the horse, A, and to protect the integrity of the game, B. And if you're talking about, they refer to it as a grain of salt in a swimming pool type of a level, which is not going to affect the horse beneficially or detrimentally. So it doesn't affect the health or the integrity of the sport, but you get a huge black eye, as you say, with these headlines. But all of that said, given what Bob Baffert has gone through over the past year and a half, it was just careless to use this substance, which had the banned ingredient in it, in the days leading up to the Derby, because he has such high-profile clients and horses, and he's in the biggest races. And so, again, it was just really careless that they wound up using this.
But again, it's not a banned substance; it's a regulated substance. It has to be out of the horse's system 14 days before, in Kentucky, before it would run. But that's why they have to have they have to have a commissioner. They have to have a universal rules that everyone follows. There's just so many different jurisdictions and so many different rules. I mean, and contamination is a part of this. I mean, there's a lot of people that interact with these horses that work at the barns, and what is on their hands? Just don't know. There's just so many things that can go wrong. Maybe they just start wearing gloves. I don't know. Maybe they do wear gloves. I never see that, but it's just it's just a problem that needs to be rectified, and I don't know when, if, or how it ever will be.
Well, maybe the HISA rule will address it in some fashion. Certainly start to standardize things across the country, because that's a big problem too, certainly. And you've kind of alluded to it. We're taping on Friday, but things are still a little bit up in the air. There has been part of getting both Medina Spirit Concert Tour and other Baffert horses on the cards this weekend at Pimlico. He agreed to have his horses tested in kind of an extended fashion from the normal. And Medina Spirit, I believe, as we were talking earlier, a test has already come back that was negative, but we're still waiting for a Friday afternoon result that potentially could change things. But given that the earlier test is okay, it's assumed that Medina Spirit will be okay for Saturday. But again, things are still a little bit up in the air as we're talking on Friday morning.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if the other test comes back negative. I mean, I was talking to Jimmy Barnes, Bob's assistant, today, and he's confident that they'll be running. And if heaven help us if he's not, because then we got another another big brush fire has just erupted on the horse racing scene. But hopefully things will work out well, and we get a full field of 10.
And just before we move on to Preakness Day itself and the Preakness and your thoughts there, just some last thoughts on Derby Oaks weekend. I just made a quick list of, and again, it's so sad that this came out last week and took the air out of the room, because that was really a great weekend of racing. I thought Jackie's Warrior, who won the Hopeful up at Saratoga, I thought that horse looked fabulous. She Dares the Devil for Brad Cox, going to be now a player in that nice division. Maxfield looked good on the comeback from the disappointment in the big cap. Gamine was very good, another Baffert runner. The Colonel Liam Domestic Spending Dead Heat was a lot of fun, and Malathat over search results in the Oaks. What were some of your highlights on the weekend other than the Derby?
Well, Malfat in the Oaks was definitely a highlight. I mean, when the finish of that horse with Chad's filly, it was a ding dong finish. It looked like to everyone that watched it, but Johnny V and Todd were also saying they were never worried because this horse just yearns for the competition. She does what she has to do, and she wasn't going to let Chad's filly go by, and now the wait is on to see eventually if she'll try the boys. I mean, there was talk after the Oaks that they would have preferred to run in the Derby against the boys, and I don't think they've closed the door totally on maybe running in the Belmont, which would be, it always spices up a classic race when a filly runs against the boys, and Todd Pletcher's already done it once with Rags to Riches when he beat Curlin back in '07. It was those are the kind of things that really spice things up. And another thing I'm taking away from the Derby is weekend is, of course, we didn't see running the Derby. Derby weekend wasn't going to run on that weekend was Swiss Skydiver, who won the Alabama last year before she won the Preakness. Kenny McPeak, her trainer, said that her next two starts will probably be at Saratoga, one in the Shuvi in July and the other in the Personal Ensign on Travers Day. So fans of Swiss Skydiver should get to see her twice in Saratoga, which will be great for us up there.
Yeah, because she was one of the highlights last year in the Alabama. That was one of the better performances, along with Tiz the Law and the Travers, and it was just so sad that fans weren't able to be on track to see really a number of those nice performances. And speaking of nice performances, let's turn our attention to the Preakness and get some of your thoughts there. Before I get specifically who you like, we're going to pull up, again, I went to your Twitter feed, and you had a little video of Medina Spirit on track at Pimlico yesterday, Thursday, and so I'm going to pull that up and then just ask you in general, you've been there all week. I'm always curious if there's any kind of buzz for one of the horses on the backside in the week leading up to these big races. Any buzz horse?
Well, actually, a lot of the buzz is for Midnight Bourbon. Besides the fact that Steve Asmussen is very, very high on him. He has looked really good on track. He's given us all indications that he's sitting on a huge race. He was compromised at the start of the Derby, got bumped, and he ran a pretty good sixth in that race. And if you're going to look for a horse coming out of the Derby to throw a wrench into Medina Spirit, it may very well be him. The other horse that is getting buzz is Concert Tour, the aforementioned second stringer second seed from Baffert's barn. He won his first three, and then inexplicably ran poorly, 1-5 in the Arkansas Derby, finishing third. And that was a mile and an eighth, the Arkansas Derby, and now he's going a mile and 3/16, a little farther. Is there a distance limitation for him? And also, when the gates open, Concert Tour likes to be on the lead, so does Medina Spirit. Will they cancel each other out? Does it set it up for a horse like maybe, Rombauer, who was last seen running third in the Bluegrass against Essential Quality and Highly Motivated? You gotta don't sleep on Chad Brown either. I mean, he won this race in 2017, coming in under the radar, and Crowded Trade, one of his two in here, has the exact same pattern. The first three starts of their career, breaking the maiden at Aqueduct, and finishing second in the Gotham and third in the Wood. Crowded Trade did that, and so that's exactly what Cloud Computing did in 2017. When Chad has said that, there might be some distance limitation for Crowded Trade by More Than Ready, and his other horse, Risk Taking, is by Medaglia d'Oro, who was one of Chad's favorite horses when he was working under Bobby Frankel. When he started his career, when he was there for 5 years, that horse has shown that he can. He won a mile and eighth in the Withers, and then was a god awful seventh in the Wood. But and the face it, the Wood was a god awful race anyway. It was not a race that has produced anything. But Chad says he's going to throw a line through that race because he's Risk Taking was the 2-1 favorite in that race and never really picked up his feet after getting a lot of kickback. And the day after the race, he said one of the horse's eyes was closed, and he said that he's hoping that by him getting some more experience in that race, that they'll be able to turn the corner. And they both worked pretty well together last week at Belmont. Chad called it their best works of the season. So he says he thinks they're both horses that he thinks are live coming into this spot, and what he's done. And when he was here in 2017, he was pretty confident, and so I think people should pay attention to those two horses as well. And another horse I'm a little intrigued with, only because I've been watching him all week, is the Japanese invader Francisco Diina, who had himself a moment on Wednesday when he breezed. He had a 4 furlong breeze, and you don't usually see American horses do that 3 days before a race, but it's very common in Japan. But when they hit the finish line, the exercise rider just fell off. I mean, the horse didn't take a bad step or stumble or anything, but the guy just fell off. I mean, it looked like something out of a movie. And it was just, and the horse went off on his own, and no one was hurt. The horse came back and he's been fine since. And the last time he ran was in the UAE Derby, and he lost all chance when he stumbled out of the gate, had a bad break. So I don't think we know what this horse can do. I mean, I definitely wouldn't put him on top, but at 20-1, maybe he steps up and gets a piece, and it certainly doesn't hurt that he has Joel Rosario riding him. I mean, Joel rode him in Dubai, and he's retaining the mount here. So there are a bunch of different storylines here to look at going into this Preakness. I mean, I think that if Medina Spirit is able to control the race like he did in Kentucky, I think he might be very tough to beat, because he doesn't know that all this controversy surrounding it. He don't care about that. All he cares about is running, and he could be tough in here. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm going to put him on top, but I think because of his toughness, you have to keep him in your exotics. I mean, because that's all he does is compete and run first or second. So I'm not sold on Concert Tour. Maybe he isn't a horse that's going to go on distance wise, but there's definitely a horse out there that maybe more than one that could jump up and win this at a price.
Yeah, I like what you had to say about Midnight Bourbon getting a little buzz, because I'm going to tilt in that direction. I'm just not convinced Medina Spirit will be able to come back after that ding-dong battle 2 weeks and give the same effort. I used a little crowded trade right underneath Midnight Bourbon. One other horse I'll just mention before we wrap up, Ram from D. Wayne Lucas. It would be very interesting to see the coach put another Preakness on his resume. And this horse comes out of a nice win at Churchill just a couple weeks back.
Yeah, that was on Derby Day. It was the opening race on Derby Day. It was 9-1. I mean, it took him 8 tries to break his maiden, and this is a son of American Pharoah, and it's interesting how he got his name. It's Wayne, when the horse was a yearling, when he bought the horse, down at Churchill Down, the Dodge truck Ram was this big sponsorship at Churchill, and all the barns had like the name Ram on top of them, and there was signage all over Churchill Downs with Ram on it. Wayne thought, well, I'm going to name this horse Ram because if this horse gets good, gets to the Derby and gets to be one of the favorites and does some good, he was thinking he might get a free truck out of the Dodge people. But then right before, I guess a year later or so, they changed the sponsorship to Ford, and he couldn't change it. So Ram it is, and so he's Wayne is optimistic. Wayne's a realist. He knows that his horse. He said he doesn't expect he'll win, but he says the way he's going, he might be able to jump up and get a piece. He said this could be a Travers horse.
Oh,
this could be a Travers horse for him. So he might do some good down the road. Maybe not Saturday, but down the road.
He should start saying, yeah, he's named Graham, but around the barn we call him Bronco. see if you can work a truck out of the nickname. Tim, we really appreciate the visit. And as I say, a little recap from being live on the ground down at Churchill a couple of weeks ago and live into this week leading up to the Preakness. Wish you a lot of luck on the weekend. Enjoy the coverage. As I say, you can check out Tim's Twitter feed, but also the coverage in the Albany Times-Union as well. Tim, appreciate the visit. We'll talk again.
Thanks much, Seth, and I hope you get a winner.
I'm going to try. After a couple of weeks ago, I need one. I'm owed one. But Tim Wilkin, Albany Times-Union.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the Capital Region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
The Capital Region has some of the most sophisticated horse racing fans in the country. That's why Capital OTB built the Clubhouse Racebook. Here you can wager year-round on the best horse racing from around the world. The Clubhouse also has monthly promotions including live bankrolls, handicapping contests, and so much more. Like sports? Watch your favorite teams on more than 30 screens in Legends Field Sports Grill. Food, sports, and the excitement of championship horse racing. Only at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now. Happy to be joined now by Jeremy Plonk, Countdown to the Crown, horseplayernow.com, and more. Jeremy, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Seth. It's Preakness Day. Skies are great, and we're looking forward to a fantastic day of racing in Pimlico because that's what we need right now. We need a good day of racing.
And before we get into the Preakness, I wanted to go back and get your thoughts on Derby. I was, kind of keeping up with the Countdown to the Crown package over the last few weeks. I tout throughout, and we've had you on every Friday. The nice package comes out early on, looking at prep races and whatnot. Obviously, this time of year, looking at the Triple Crown races. So I've been keeping up. So we'll get a little recap of some of Oaks Derby weekend action as well. But before we do that, just give people a little update what's available on Horseplayer now vis-a-vis the Preakness and the Pimlico card on Saturday.
Well, we've got the Countdown to the Crown scouting report. You can get that there, which gives my horse-by-horse analysis and the bottom-line judgment on each of the contenders. And then the Horse Player Now Buzz report, which is our handicapping service, has full card picks for Saturday at Pimlico. Also, a handicapping journal from Brian Spencer for Nationals plays, as well as full card action at Santa Anita. So all that for our normal $10 Saturday price. It's a good package for the weekend, and a lot of racing this weekend to take a look at. And again, all those Pimlico races in detail, wagering strategies, confidence plays, all that kind of stuff in the Buzz report.
People can check it out. Horseplayernow.com, highly recommended. Now let's go back a couple of weeks because, again, you lead into the Derby. And the Derby, I thought Oaks Derby weekend produced some great racing, not the least of which was the Derby itself. We'll watch the stretch run. Medina Spirit over Mandaloun, over Hot Rod Charlie, favored Essential Quality runs fourth. I liked Mandaloun. I used Mandaloun. I thought he was going to go by the entire length of the stretch until maybe the last 50 or 60 yards or so. But Medina Spirit just would not let him get by. Your thoughts recapping the Derby?
Yeah, we were both kind of leaning probably in the stretch there. I needed Hot Rod Charlie to hit the pick six, and my main play was Known Agenda, and he just didn't fire at all. I mean, that was the horse I needed, and he didn't run well. But Hot Rod Charlie, Mandaloun, Essential Quality, they all had a chance, and none of them could come up with the move they needed to get by Medina Spirit. He kind of ran an authentic kind of race, like he did last September in the Kentucky Derby, led all the way for Baffert with an aggressive ride, and the others weren't up to the test that day. And we'll see if it can change at Pimlico. But given that style and the way he ran against that quality of a field, it was a win that will it have an asterisk and be tainted in the future? That's still to be decided with the split sample. But when you look at it on its face, it was the fastest spring Kentucky Derby winner Bob Baffert's ever trained. It was the 8th fastest Derby of all time. And they only went 1:11-1 or 1:11-2 for the first 6 furlongs. And they still came up with the 8th fastest Derby. So the performance itself was outstanding. Now, the track was fast that day, right? We know that. And fast tracks make for fast times. But you got to couple that with a fast horse. When you're talking the 8th fastest Kentucky Derby in 147 runnings, that can't all be the track. Now, we did have 4 horses with a length at the finish line. So if you're going to make that leap, you're going to say that 4 horses ran top 10 type Derby performances ever. That's probably a lot more to do with the track, but it's still an outstanding performance. And we just don't know whether to trust it or not now, Seth. I mean, that's where we're left.
The one human story out of that, I mean, Baffert, record Derby and record Grade 1 total of wins on the weekend for Baffert. But again, a little bit tainted now. But on the human side, you still have to tip your cap to Johnny Velasquez, a veteran now in the jocks room. The day before in the Oaks, I mentioned it a number of times. It was fun to see Irad Ortiz lean over and give the high five after the ding-dong battle between Search Results and Malathat. Just shows the respect John Velasquez got. So he was a nice story on Oaks Derby weekend.
Yeah, 4 Kentucky Derby wins for Velasquez on vastly different kind of horses. You go back and the Animal Kingdoms, the Always Dreaming, and you come up with the 2 Bafferts on the front end here for different barns, different styles of trainers, different styles of horses. 4 Kentucky Derby wins put you in rare air. He's one of the all-time greats and probably will be one of those guys who's one of the most underappreciated, right? Like at any point in his career, did everybody just say, God, you got to have John Velasquez on your horse? I don't think he ever got that I am the guy in the game respect, but he's been like a 20-time All-Star in Major League parlance, right? I mean, every year he's one of the top 5 riders in America. He still is at his advanced age, and he's one of the all-time greats, even though he never had the 50 home run season, by analogy.
I like that. Yeah, I think you're right. He is one of those guys that's been at the top of the game and kind of recognized as that, but there has never been that season or 2 or 3 or 5 where you said, oh, he's the guy this year. But what a career he has had. And that weekend was a lot of fun, certainly to watch him. We get to watch him all summer long up at Saratoga every year. Just quickly, like some of your impressions on the weekend overall, because I thought, unfortunately, we'll hit on this momentarily too briefly, but the air got taken out of the room a little bit on what was a great weekend of racing. I have a list here. I thought Jackie's Warrior was spectacular. Yeah. She Dares the Devil. Maxfield on the comeback after the disappointment in the Big Cap. Gamine looked good. Colonel Liam, dead heating with domestic spending, was fabulous. And Malathat and Search Results in the Oaks. I thought it was a fabulous weekend of racing.
It was a lot of really tight finishes, and not just tight finishes, but tight finishes amongst the top contenders, right? I mean, those were like the 1-2 contenders banging at the wire in that dead heat in the Turf Classic. In the Oaks, it was the 1-2 contenders in the big throwdown. You look at the Kentucky Derby result, the top 4 in there were all horses that had some level of excellence to them throughout the course of this campaign, and we all thought may have been top type contenders. There were no flukes among that top 4. Even though Mandaloun was a high price, that was because he had the one poor effort. There were like 4 horses who were respected throughout the year, all came with their game, and they all ran within a length. I tried to go back and look at the charts, Seth, and I got tired. I could not find a Derby where the top 4 finished within a length. I was going back and I was piecing through them. It gets a little bit harder with the older charts to find these days and things like that in the old media guides. But you think of a Kentucky Derby with 4 finishers, one length apart at the finish line. It seemed like it was odd that it's not normal that it happens. And I couldn't find an example of it. Maybe somebody else has, but I went back a pretty long ways, and that's a special finish.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I hadn't thought about it, but I think that's just going through replaying in my head. Yeah, you don't normally see that, and it's interesting. You bring up the big price on Mandaloun. Now I'm curious. He went off a big price. The last 2 weeks, I've said to everybody, I used Mandaloun. I was really hoping he'd go by in the stretch. Everybody I talked to says, "Yeah, me too, me too." And so he was getting a lot of action, but still went off at a nice price. But I did not get to. Well, I was going to say I did not get to go up the windows. I will ask you, because you're somebody who focuses on how to play the game and odds and whatnot. I did go up to the window because I had him in some future pools, Mandaloun. I used him obviously on the win end. I had used him in a double with Malathat the day before, so I had some Mandaloun live. But when I looked up at the board and I saw 26-1, I said, I'm going to shoot myself if he runs second, and there's a $20 mutual there that I left on the table. And I, over the years, have started to feel like if I get 8 or 9 or 10-1 on the horse I like, I'm going to take a look at a place bet as well. And so I had a little place money on Mandaloun the other day.
Well, good. It's good. I mean, you want to cover yourself, whether it's place or in the bottom of the exacta. And really, when you look at the math, some of it has to do with field size and checking the will pace, and assuming who runs first is going to affect your place price, So if you think you're going to get beat by one of the favorites and you're going to get a little bit smaller on the place end, then you want to go back and get an exacta with that favorite as well. Say you're going to bet 20 to place. Maybe you bet 18 to place and a $2 exacta the favorite over your horse second. Because if that favorite gets in there, you're going to get less on the place end, but now you're going to pick up the exacta on it as well. Sometimes it can work out better just to back wheel the horse completely, and it's not going to work out for you in a 20-horse field more than like 19, what we had there, because it would have cost you $18 to back wheel the horse. So if you figure maybe I'm going to get $10 second, 18 times that, if you've got an $18 play on that, is $90. Can you get a $1 exacta higher than $90? Depends who you think could win the race, and how many of those type contenders would be there. In many cases, if you can afford to do so, you're better off, instead of betting the place, to do the back wheel in the exacta. But in a big field like that, depending on the situation, just take the straight up money. The other thing too is when you back wheel in the exacta, you give yourself a chance to have a losing ticket, right? Because if your horse actually wins, you're not collecting the place bet. So the place bet does give you a chance to collect it, even if he does win, So there's give and take to that, but it sometimes check the will pace. Sometimes it's better to back wheel second. A lot of times, though, just taking that straight place play, nothing wrong with it at all.
Yeah, I like that thinking. And as I say, I've gotten to the point now where I see 8, 9, 10-1. I start to think to protect some way if I run second at a price. And so, you want the win money, certainly, but you don't want to kick yourself after the race is over if your horse runs well.
Yeah, and on the betting end, because I don't think we talk about it enough in analyzing races and stuff like that, I really like how you got to the Preakness with your horse, right? You bet him in the 2-day races. You bet him in the pick 3s, the pick 4s. That's kind of the way I was with Known Agenda. I had a big pick 3. I thought Fletcher was going to have a big weekend. I think I might have even said it with you on a previous deal. But Malathat, Colonel Liam, and the Known Agenda, I just played a very heavy pick 3 on those 3 horses. So when it got to Derby time, I'm alive in the pick 3, which makes it made Known Agenda like a 35-1 shot, basically. It was paying like $35 for $1, even with the dead heat. So now all of a sudden I got a 35-1 shot instead of what he is on the tote board. So getting to a horse you really like and maximize your opinion as many ways as you can get to them is really important. And then when you get to the race, I didn't bet Known Agenda to win in the race then. Because I'm like, I've got 35-1 on him in this pick 3. I can use him in other things. Like I played more exactas and tries with him on top. So if he wins, I'm not worried about the win money. Now I'm going to get greedy and try to hit the big exotics underneath him as well. So playing your horse in and out of races like that can give you a lot of chances to hedge and maximize your opinion when you get to it. Now, if you're lucky enough to get him home like Mandaloun, or if we could have got Known Agenda home, that would have been great. But give yourself the best chance to make money when you're right. Get paid when you're right. That's the number one rule.
Yeah, I like that. I like the betting discussion, and we should probably maybe do more of that, plug more of that in as we go along, because you're right. And I've said it for years. We concentrate on the handicapping, but it's really a 2-part game. You can handicap great and bet incorrectly, and so we concentrate a lot on the handicapping and not enough on betting strategies and how to maximize your good handicapping as you go forward. Let's before we move on to Preakness and Preakness thoughts, just we've already kind of alluded to it, and obviously like to get your thoughts on subsequently. Last Sunday, as I say, the air kind of came out of the room with the
Sure.
positive test for the Derby winner. My take, I've said over the past few days, I think the racing industry does itself a disservice with the zero tolerance rules. This wouldn't have been a positive in California, as I understand it. And so you get the Derby winner, and it's a black eye and bad headlines. As I say, these medication rules are meant to protect the horse and the integrity of the game. And if the level is so low, it wouldn't have affected either of those. I'm not sure we're doing a real service to the game. But all of that said, Baffert, given what he's been through over the past year and a half, to have been using this ointment over the past, the 5 days leading up to the Kentucky Derby, just really careless.
Well, if that's what he did, right? We're taking his word for it that they used the ointment. This thing is all, these medications are also used to shoot up joints and to allow horses to train through some pain. And when you look at Bob Baffert's claim to fame, it's how hard he trains his horses, and he trains for speed, right? We always hear that. Why doesn't everybody train for speed like Baffert? Well, maybe you can't. Maybe you can't send a horse every 6 days out to run 6 furlongs in 110 or 111 unless you give them a little bit of something for the pain, for the joints, for things like that. So this stuff is okay to use therapeutically. It's okay to use out of competition. It can't be there for race day. Maybe that's the advantage he has, and maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know. But what we do know is he trains horses faster than anybody else, and he's had these violations in the past couple of years. So we're not speculating on those two facts. Those are two facts. We're all trying to connect the dot. If the dot you're connecting is I believe what he tells me, then that's okay. That's you as a human being saying I trust this other guy talking to me. If you're more intuitive and you try to say maybe there's more to it than that, you start to try to put dots together. And there's also the whole idea, too, that some of these medications show up as false positives on tests. We saw in that FBI raid of the Jason Service and Jorge Navarro situation last year that some of these medications will give off false positives for something else on tests. So until we know for sure that what showed up in his system was actually that item, maybe it was a false positive for something else, we don't really know. There's a lot of smoke. I think there's some fire to it. I have questions about it just personally. The one thing I would have liked to seen done, Seth, and nobody came to me and asked, and I'll probably get in trouble for even saying it and suggesting it, but why couldn't this horse have run for purse money only in the Preakness? Protect the betting public. If you want to protect the individual rights of the trainer and the horseman involved and let due process play out, if due process takes more than 2 weeks to figure out, let the horse run. It's a horse race. He runs for purse money. But due process can't help the handicapper in 2 weeks figure out whether this horse is legit or not. So let him run for purse money only. We do that in other situations, right? Horses run for purse money only when scratches happen. So a tote system can handle it, things like that. I think that would have been the win-win situation for everybody involved in a situation that really has no winners, right? I mean, there's nothing good that comes out about this, but it makes it for a difficult Preakness to bet.
Yeah, interesting. I haven't read that run up the flagpole, but I think it is an interesting thought, certainly. As you say, if things then work out that folks who run second are a little upset like they are maybe with the Derby, that would have protected that. Yeah, it's an interesting concept. Let's talk a little Preakness now. Specifically, Medina Spirit comes back. He was allowed to run. We're taping on Friday. I had talked to Tim Wilkin from the Albany Times-Union earlier, and there is still a pending test as we talk on Friday that could change things up. But it looks like at this point, as I understand it, one of the tests has already come back negative, and so you would assume this Friday afternoon test will as well. But things could change up before Saturday for Medina Spirit. But it looks like he's set to go. Concert Tour set to go as well for Baffert. I'm going to take a little pop against Medina Spirit because I thought it was a tough race, 2 weeks out, and so I'm going to go in a different direction. And from reading Countdown to the Crown, I think maybe you're in the same direction. I pulled up a little replay going back to the Louisiana Derby Hot Rod Charlie, the number 5, will be the winner. Midnight Bourbon, the number 7, runs a pretty good second in this Louisiana Derby. Mandaloon subsequently maybe flattered this with his performance a couple of weeks ago. Subsequently, of course, Midnight Bourbon didn't really show up in the Kentucky Derby the way he was anticipated to. I thought the 6th place finish was probably pretty good given where he was early. So I'm going to tilt in that direction. I like that they're confident enough to come back in a couple of weeks and try that. So I have Midnight Bourbon on top. Crowded Trade I'm going to put in the 2nd spot. Medina Spirit down in the 3rd spot for me. But as I say, reading Countdown to the Crown, it looks like you may be looking at Midnight Bourbon as well.
Yeah, we'll toast each other after the race, hopefully. I like him for a couple of reasons. 4 of the 6 top finishers in the Kentucky Derby came out of that Louisiana Derby, you know? And so if the ones lining up behind Medina Spirit you want to look at are the Louisiana horses. No horse was more consistent throughout that series than Midnight Bourbon, right? Winner of the LeCompte, I believe 3rd in the Risen Star, 2nd in the Louisiana Derby. Went through that series nicely. Steve Asmussen has had great success at Pimlico with his horses over Preakness weekend, including 2 Preakness victories. Now, this is not Curlin or Rachel Alexandra. You know, his 2 Preakness winners were Hall of Famers. But I think he's caught a field where Midnight Bourbon's going to fit very well against this group. You move to Irad Ortiz. I think that can be a good jock move there. Not that the riders who have ridden him in the past aren't, you know, capable riders, but I think that Irad can move a horse up. I think he's just got that knack. He's the best rider in America right now. And he's going to sit, if things work out the way it looks on paper, it didn't in the Derby, but he should sit 3rd in here behind the 2 Baffert horses. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't. And then that lets Irad Ortiz measure what the 2 are doing in front of him. If you give me the best rider in America with 2 targets out there in front of him, he's going to give the horse every chance to win if he's good enough. The thing I liked about his Derby, Seth, as much as he got knocked out of his game and he was back in 10th, 11th, and he did wind up 6th and closed a little bit of ground. He should have melted down in that race. That should have been just terrible for him because, 1, that's not his style. But 2, if you followed him Derby week, he got loose in the stable area and ran off. In his workouts, he was going really fast early. In the paddock schooling session, Steve Asmussen himself, like 3 days during the week, took the horse to the paddock for schooling. Not a groom, not an assistant trainer. Steve had the horse by the shank, leading him around 3 days in a row, leading up to the Derby to try to get him to calm down and take his cues. Well, when he got wiped out by his own stablemate coming out of the starting gate, he should have been 19th. You know, you really just write it off and say, this head case is done. But what happened is if you watch the replay, under the wire the first time, he just settles into a really nice stride, and Smith gets him going nice. And he looked like he belonged there. And he ran a nice race from that point forward. I think it was a big maturation race for him and a big maturation week for him that he needed. If he moves forward, we haven't heard of any of the hijinks since. The pictures and video of him look outstanding since he's arrived at Pimlico. I think he's set to run his best race. Is it good enough to beat the Bafferts? We'll find out. But I think the price is the key here. You know, I won 5 or 6 to 1 on him. Anything less than that, I think, is an underlay. And I'm afraid there's going to be enough skeptical people of Medina Spirit. He doesn't have the hop. He doesn't have the juice this time. He's not going to be 6-5 like a Derby winner should, right? You run the 8th fastest Derby of all time for Bob Baffert, you come back into Preakness, you're 6-5 or less. I get the feeling there's going to be enough suspicious people out there that let his price drift up. He could be 9-5, something like that. And if he's 9-5, that means there's a lot of money being bet on other horses. And there's a lot of horses in this Preakness that aren't that attractive. So who's going to get the money? It's got to be Concert Tour, and it's got to be Midnight Bourbon. Maybe Crowded Trade gets bet a little bit, but I think he might be overbet, and that's my fear. I don't like him at 7-2 so much, but at 5 or 6 to 1, I like him quite a bit more.
Yeah, I'm kind of anticipating Crowded Concert Tour to take a lot of that action. I'm really intrigued to see what happens when they go in the gate, because I'm totally with you. I think a lot of people will be skeptical of Medina Spirit, and for a Derby winner, he'll float up a little bit. But to me, the alternative, they're going to go to the other Baffert horse. I'm really intrigued to see where the betting ends up as they go in the gate.
Yeah, I do a wager guide for First Bet, and we have like 16 handicappers, and a lot of people went that direction, the Concert Tour. Like, you can almost feel the tide there, and I think you're right. I think he will get bet. Who was Eddie Olczyk, I believe it was. I saw on a video that we did, said he actually thinks Concert Tour could go favorite, which would be an interesting twist there. So, yeah, I'd be curious to see. The betting's going to be very interesting. I hope they're not on our horse, Seth. I mean, I hope we get 5 to 1. I think 5 to 1 would be a square, fair price.
Again, I talked to Tim Wilkin earlier, and he kind of mentioned something that I read in your Countdown to the Crown package. Talk a little bit about crowded trade. I have that one right underneath, but you noted if you're comparing years past and winners past, he makes a favorable comparison to another Chad Brown Preakness winner, Cloud Computing.
Yeah, it's uncanny. You know, I do this piece the week before the Derby every year because there's no races to review and stuff like that or preview, where I compare horses, all 20 in the field, to somebody's resume or their form that they look like from the past. And sometimes we learn from the past, and these horses kind of perform similarly. There is no doubt about it in this year's Preakness that Cloud Computing from 2017 is identical in form to what we see with Crowded Trade here. I mean, they debut as 3-year-olds. They don't race at 2. They debut at Aqueduct Sprinting. They win the debut. They run second in the Wood, or second in the Gotham, and then run third in the Wood. The margins beaten in those 3 races are almost similarly identical, 4-2 of them. And they skipped the Kentucky Derby and pointed towards the Preakness. Klaravich Stable, the owner, a Baltimore native, loves the Preakness, wants to come here and run. He's back again, and you've got Seth Klarman, of course, that being, and then Chad Brown, of course, the trainer of both of these horses, and brings Cloud Computing in. The one big key difference, I think, is Cloud Computing looked a little bit more of a router with the pedigree. He was out of an AP Indy mare. He had a lot of stamina on the dam side. This horse is kind of bred miler, top and bottom, if you look at Crowded Trade. So I don't know that he stretches all the way out to the mile and 3/16, but I think he's going to run a good race. I think if you're playing supers down to 4th place, I think he's a horse you want to give a long consideration to. I think he could very well run 3rd or 4th in here. Maybe he could run 2nd as well. Somebody's probably better than him at a mile and 3/16, where the distance trips him up. But I think Crowded Trade's a real player in here. And if you're playing exotics, I think you definitely want to consider him.
Also, looking at your selections, you have down at the bottom of your mix the Japanese runner, who I find really intriguing. You're going to get your price there. Joel Rosario on board again. He was on board for the 6th place finish in the UAE Derby, but that was a troubled trip. This horse is interesting to me, the Japanese Invader.
Well, I'm looking for my exotics in the Preakness. The Preakness is usually a straightforward race on top. There's only been 2 20-to-1 winners in history. $43 is the best you're going to get on a Preakness winner anywhere. You don't expect the bombers on top. But I did get a cherry wine in underneath, a senior investment in recent years. Closers you can kind of take advantage and get a piece. They're not always the ones that kind of seem obvious. Both of those horses were new shooters to the Triple Crown Trail. They weren't the Derby closers, the Keep Me in Mind and horses like that people think are going to if they just got a better trip. I think Keep Me in Mind is going to be overrated off his trip, and so he's not the closer I want. Rombauer doesn't really just kind of jump off the page to me as a closer. If you look at the closers in this race, you figure one of them's going to get in the top 3 or 4 somewhere. Who's it going to be? I don't like the U.S. horses that much. So to kind of fit the mold and the pattern of what we're looking for to get underneath, I kind of defaulted a little bit into France Godaina, the horse from Japan. His race in the UAE, he makes a really nice middle move. And, in the stretch, he's making up good ground. And he runs a good race. It was a respected edition of that race. The winner is well thought of. The runner-up is well thought of in this year's UAE Derby. So maybe there's a shot there. Lanny, he ran decent enough in the Triple Crown Series. And we've seen some of these horses from Japan, top 5, top 6, hit the board here and there. There haven't been many options for them, but they haven't come here and gotten embarrassed, right? The horses from Japan that have come over, they didn't run 12th in 3 straight races. They ran well and respectable. So I'm not expecting him to do anything big in here. But if he can get a piece, if he can be the closer that comes along, he can be your cherry wine or senior investment that kicks up the try and makes it pay something in here. Because, if you're a Midnight Bourbon and 2 Bafferts, you better hope you got something in the 14th.
Let me just toss out a few that people may be looking at that we haven't commented on yet. 2 that scare me that I didn't put in my mix: Unbridled Honor from Pletcher and Risk Taking from Chad Brown. And I'll also toss out Ram from the coach, D. Wayne Lucas, who would add another Preakness to the resume. With a horse that ran okay at Churchill a couple of weeks ago, probably has to step forward a little bit. But your thoughts: Unbridled Honor, Risk Taking, and Ram.
The funny thing is everybody's talking Baffert going for a record-breaking 8th Preakness to beat R.W. Walden, the 19th century trainer who also won 7. But if D. Wayne Lucas wins with Ram, he joins that club as the all-time leading Preakness trainer. He'll tie Baffert and tie Walden. He's got 6 Preakness wins. I don't think he's going to do it with Ram. I think he's biting off a lot. This is a horse who was 0 for 7, and then won his last 2 starts. He's put it together against easier competition. He just ran on Derby Day, so he's coming back on 2 weeks. So he kind of gives away that fresh horse advantage that you might have over some of the Derby horses. So he's probably in tough here. And it's great to see Lucas in the race, but I don't think Ram's got much of a chance in there. The others you talk about, Risk Taking, Unbridled Honor. Risk Taking's run in the Wood is probably one of the most perplexing races of the entire Triple Crown Trail this year. I mean, if you thought of a horse who's back against the field at a distance over a track that he's been successful at, his back-to-back mile and an eighth wins, and then going into the Wood, he looked as trustworthy to run a decent race as anybody in any prep this year. And he just ran the worst race of his career. And that Wood came back terrible, right? I think they were, 13th, 15th, and 19th or something like that in the Derby. They were all 13th or worse, the horses who came out of the Wood. So it's hard to take risk-taking back on that. But it is Chad. There is respect there for sure. We know he's going to get a distance of ground. He can definitely do that. I just wonder what his form is like right now. I haven't seen him train, so I don't have anything that gives me an indicator that, I'm going to jump back on him this time. Other than, maybe you liked him all along and you said, I'll give him a mulligan. Could happen. As for Pletcher's horse, Unbridled Honor, I just don't think he's very fast. He's kind of a plodding type. He's going to pick up some pieces, but then he kind of flattens out. I think he's like more of a mile and a 16th type closer. He's only gone up to a mile and a 16th right now. I think a shorter race with a faster pace might play to him, but I don't think he's a sustained closer in a race at this distance. So, like I said, like the late runners, I kind of found holes in the game of all the late runners in this race that I'm trying to get cute with to get into the try, and that's why I ended up with the horse from Japan.
All right. I like it. Jeremy, always appreciate the visit. We'll tell people to swing by Countdown to the Crown and read all about it, what you've talked about and more. The Buzz package at Horse Player Now as well. Always get some good information. Appreciate the conversation, and we'll talk again.
All right. Good luck in the Preakness.
Same to you. Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, Countdown to the Crown, and much more. Thanks again to Jeremy Plonk and Tim Wilkin for joining us. Again, we taped those yesterday with the early start just to make schedules work. That was a little more convenient. So hopefully they tossed out some ideas that'll be beneficial for you on this Preakness day. That's certainly the game plan. We will be back in shortly, actually, sooner rather than later with the early post time at Pimlico. I'll probably get cooking with OTB Live and the OTB Live bankroll a little bit early. I'll probably sit in the studio a little bit maybe and look at some of the early races. Then we'll move out into the front portion of the race book for OTB Live. And let me remind you, OTB Live bankroll this afternoon, $750 up for grabs, 20 folks randomly selected. If you stop at the race book today, you can put your name in the hat between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. About 2 o'clock, we'll select the 20 folks who will be on the team. I'll be playing between 1 and 6 with the $750, and whatever money we have made at the end of the day, split up amongst the bankroll team. So stop on by OTB Live $750 Preakness Day bankroll here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. See if you can pick up some free capital OTB money. Don't forget the Clubhouse opens up today at 9:30. All other branches at 10 a.m. First post at Pimlico is 10:30. Nighttime Thoroughbreds available tonight here on the network and via capitalotbbet.com. I think that catches you up. I'm out of my breath. It has been a fabulous Friday, Black-Eyed Susan Friday yesterday with Army Wife getting it done. Nice undercard of stakes, and we expect more of the same on Saturday leading into the Preakness. So wishing you a lot of good luck this afternoon. Love to see you down here at the Racebook and join us for the bankroll. But otherwise, good luck. Hopefully we're all cashing tickets and we are flush by the end of this Preakness day. So I'm going to wrap it up. But as I say, we'll be back in a couple hours or so as we kick off OTB Live on a Saturday looking at the Preakness and more here on Capital OTB TV. So thanks for tuning in. As always, good luck. We'll see you tomorrow.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.